Welcome to the 2021 West Coast Intensive. I'm Leslie Nips, and I am the founding organizer, and I'm here with Susie Tucker and Jane Peterson. Today, we're going to gather in small groups we've called cohorts, and you're going to be doing that with one of the faculty. But all three groups are meeting at the same time. Imagine you're in a retreat center and there are meetings happening in other meeting rooms, but we're all doing it at the same time. We're doing something together. Each time we gather, we'll have a theme that we have in common, even as we come at it from some different angles. This shared theme and the reflection we do on them, again, makes this something we're doing together. Today are the cohorts. Next time, we're going to gather as one group in our Zoom room. And at that time, we'll bring the reflections and learning we do in this gathering to the full group exploration that we do in another month. Now, just a couple words about our theme. The overarching idea of this intensive is falling apart to come together. When Susie, Jane, and I developed this theme in our discernment way back in October 2019, remember back then? Before the pandemic, in preparation for our 2020 intensive, we had no idea how relevant it was going to be. And since then, it's only become more meaningful to us. And so we decided to revisit this theme for the 2021 intensive. We're going to shape and work our reflections over the 5 gatherings over the 4 months under the umbrella of this theme. Today's sub-theme, because each time we gather, we're going to have a sub-theme. Today's sub-theme is falling apart, which seems like a good place to start. Yeah? And when I hear these words, I get 2 images in my mind. The first one is of a negative experience, like being in a car going down the road and seeing the muffler go behind you and a fender and watching it fall apart. Or more seriously, your body falling apart due to some disease or breakage of some kind. It feels terrible and debilitating and uncontrollable. But I also get a positive image, a kind of surrender or release, like when we're not trying to hold it together anymore, or we allow a movement that's really needed, or we understand that there's something that we've been trying to manage that we really can't manage anymore. And although it might be scary or uncomfortable, it's a movement that feels welcome. I imagine we'll be wrestling with both of these images of falling apart in the work today. But Susie, what thoughts do you have about falling apart?
So I've been thinking about this for the last year, maybe for the last 50 years. And I have 1,000 thoughts. And one of the themes of the 1,000 thoughts has to do with how hard we work as individuals to not do this. And I think back in my childhood, and I think back to the playground, and I think back to the nuns in my school, and I think back even sometimes to my mother. And I think about the ideas of don't cry, right? Don't cry. Don't fall apart. Whatever you do, don't fall apart. And in those lessons, I think, among other things, I wasn't allowed to feel, I wasn't allowed to do this. The people around me said to me they couldn't tolerate my pain or my bloody knee or whatever else it was. But more important, I think that I got cheated and then eventually got very, very good at cheating myself out of this layer of learning something new about my capacity, that there is a way in which, as individuals and as a collective, that falling apart has very much to do with increasing our capacity, experiencing ourselves in a kind of surrender, which is different than acquiescence or resignation. It is engagement, relaxation, and then coming up again slightly different. So when I think of falling apart, I think of there is a way in which for myself and for the people around me, right this moment, we are scattering parts of ourselves in a way, sorting perhaps, and learning something new about capacity, directly related, falling apart and capacity. So I hand it to you, Jane. I'm interested in your perspective.
Yeah, so I think I'm thinking a bit about Leslie's experience and also what you're saying, Susie, in terms of both the terror when something falls apart and then the response of people when like don't fall apart, the community response that we get sometimes, or the others in our lives who constrain us. And the learning that we get about that falling apart is bad. As you said, that falling apart, there's something wrong. And there's something wrong with us, that we've somehow failed in some way if in the space of change or difficulties that we might be experiencing, we don't hold it together. And I want to just offer an image that's coming to me as I listen to the two of you, of a tango dancer. And that is that what would it have been like in our childhood when we had that skin knee, or the nuns were being mean, or there was a bully, or, and we went to somebody and they said, that's an energy, let's dance with it. At the moment, life is leading. And what we need to learn to do is follow with grace. And that is that surrender. That is that allowing something bigger to actually be the leader in the dance. And then there's times when we get to lead, when we actually are the ones who have alignment with that energy enough that we can direct it a little bit in our lives. And just this sense of that there's always something bigger, that we as human beings are kind of really this nexus point of a lot of relationships. If you think of all the relationships that define who you are, to other people, to what you've learned, to what you do in the world, to what gets you out of bed in the morning, like you're kind of this nexus point of those. And of course, the world is always shifting around us. So falling apart in a certain way, there's something kind of normal about it. And what if we had the opportunity to learn to do the tango with this thing that we call our life, to be in relationship with it and to both follow and lead as the opportunity arises, and just to think of that place where we are in the relationship of that we're actually not just this little point of me, this little self, but our real self is woven into the dance of life, and that's our dancing partner, whatever's happening. Sometimes the partner is clumsy, steps on our toes, bangs our knees, it's a little awkward. And sometimes there's a beautiful flow. And to expect that that's always going to be flow instead of times where there's, a little disharmony and we can't quite figure out the dance, seems like it's really not fair for life, because if we always had that, we wouldn't change, we wouldn't grow. So there's something beautiful about the awkward moments in the dance, and remaining, as you said, Susie, engaged as an engaged partner in the dance with our lives, instead of withdrawing and pulling away from that dance. So I like that we have the opportunity in this particular session to explore that dance and how we show up in it, how life shows up for us, all the nuances of that exchange and that relationship. So, Leslie, I hand it back to you.
Thank you. So we turn it over to the groups. We invite you into a rich 4 hours of exploring this theme of falling apart along with your faculty, and have a great day.